Mom said split everything equally at Grandma's will reading, then took my $180 inheritance, saying she was investing it in our family's future. But 2 weeks later, my older brother Derek sent me a screenshot of a conversation where she said I didn't deserve anything because I wasn't my dad's biological daughter. I went straight to First Desert Bank, where Grandma had given me the password before she died, and found letters dated from 1995 proving that Mom had cheated on Dad and that her favorite son wasn't his biological child either. The attorney's conference room fell silent as my mother, Patricia, reached across the polished mahogany table and pulled the inheritance check toward her with manicured nails that clicked against the paper. My brother Derek sat beside her with his arms crossed and that smug expression he always wore when things went his way. The attorney, Mr. Harrison, shifted uncomfortably in his leather chair as I watched my mother fold the check for $180 and slip it into her designer purse. "This is for the best, Elena," she said without looking at me, her voice carrying that tone she used when she expected obedience without question. "Your father always wanted us to be smart with money. I'll invest this properly for our family's future. You know I have connections through my work at the corporate office that can triple this amount in a few years." I sat perfectly still in my chair, my hands folded in my lap over the simple black dress I'd worn to Grandma Carmen's funeral 3 days earlier. The will had been clear, split everything equally between her 2 grandchildren, but apparently, equally had a different meaning to my mother than what was written in legal documents. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. "Mrs. Rodriguez, the will specifically states that each grandchild receives their portion directly. I'm not sure this arrangement. Are you questioning my ability to manage my own family's finances?" Patricia's voice cut through the air like a blade, her corporate HR manager persona emerging in full force. "I've been handling complex financial portfolios for 20 years. My daughter is 28 and still teaching elementary school for $45,000 a year. Do you really think she's equipped to manage this kind of money?" The attorney looked at me, waiting for me to object, to fight back, to demand what was legally mine. Instead, I reached into my purse and pulled out a pen. "Do you need me to sign something?" Derek's head snapped toward me, surprise flickering across his face before settling back into smugness. My mother's expression smoothed into satisfaction. She had expected resistance, prepared arguments, ready to guilt me with reminders of everything she'd sacrificed as a single mother after Dad died 7 years ago. My compliance caught her off guard, which was exactly what I wanted. "Well," Mr. Harrison said slowly, producing a document from his folder. "If you're certain about this arrangement, there would need to be a written agreement that Mrs. Rodriguez is managing these funds on your behalf with your consent." "Of course she consents," Patricia said, already reaching for the paper. "This is what families do. We support each other." I signed the document with steady hands while my mother explained to Mr. Harrison how she planned to invest in a mutual fund that her company's financial advisor recommended. Derek nodded along, playing the supportive son, though I noticed how his eyes kept darting to the check in Mom's purse. The meeting concluded with handshakes and assurances that the family would stay in touch regarding the investment. As we walked out of the attorney's building into the harsh Phoenix sunshine, my mother actually hugged me. Something she rarely did. "You made the right choice, Elena. Your grandmother would be proud of how mature you're being about this." I drove home to my small apartment in silence, my hands gripping the steering wheel perhaps a bit too tightly. My phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from Jessica, my best friend since college, asking how the will reading went. I ignored them, focusing instead on the memory of my grandmother's face 3 months before she died, when she'd pulled me aside during a family dinner. "Elena, mi nieta," she had whispered in the kitchen while the others watched football in the living room. "I need to tell you something important. The safe deposit box at First Desert Bank. The one your grandfather opened when they first came to Phoenix. Box 337. The password is Mariposa 1967. Promise me you'll remember." I had promised, confused about why she was telling me this, why her wrinkled hands gripped mine with such urgency. "Your mother doesn't know about this box," she continued. "Nobody does except you now. When I'm gone, if you ever need the truth about your family, everything is there. But only open it if you truly need to know." At the time, I hadn't understood. Now driving through Phoenix traffic with my inheritance stolen and my mother's voice still echoing false promises in my ears, I wondered if Grandma had somehow known this would happen. 2 weeks passed. I went to work each day, teaching third graders their multiplication tables and reading comprehension, smiling through parent-teacher conferences and playground duty. My mother called twice to say she was researching the best investment opportunities and that I shouldn't worry about the money. Derek didn't call at all, which wasn't unusual. We'd never been close despite Mom's constant insistence that family meant everything. On a Tuesday evening, I was grading papers at my kitchen table when my phone lit up with a message from Derek. We rarely texted, usually only during holidays when Mom forced us to coordinate family dinners. The preview showed it was a screenshot. My stomach dropped as I opened it. The image showed a text conversation between Derek and someone saved in his phone as Mom. The messages were from yesterday. Mom, did you see how easy it was? She didn't even fight for it. Derek, yeah, but are you sure this is okay? The lawyer seemed uncomfortable. Mom, please, Elena doesn't deserve that money anyway. Your grandmother was just being generous because she felt sorry for her. Derek, what do you mean? Mom, think about it. Your father's dark hair, dark eyes, olive skin. You have my coloring, but Elena? Those green eyes, that auburn hair. Michael wasn't her biological father. I've known since she was born. Your grandmother knew too, which is why she left her anything at all, out of pity. The message was followed by laughing emojis and, the money stays with the real Rodriguez children. Let her keep teaching her little students for pennies. Below the screenshot, Derek had typed, sorry sis, I thought you should know what she really thinks. I read it 3 times, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. My father, Michael Rodriguez, who had taught me to ride a bike, who had sat through every school play and piano recital, who had called me his little butterfly because I loved the monarch migration patterns we studied in his old nature books. Not my biological father? The memory of my mother's words at the will reading echoed differently now. Your father always wanted us to be smart with money, not our family's future, not your inheritance. She had planned this from the moment she saw Grandma's will. I grabbed my car keys and drove to First Desert Bank, barely registering the drive, my mind racing through childhood memories and examining them under this new horrifying lens. The bank was still open for another 30 minutes. I walked to the safe deposit area where a security guard checked my ID and led me to a private viewing room after I provided the box number and password. Box 337 was larger than I expected. Inside, beneath some of my grandfather's old immigration papers and property deeds, I found a manila envelope marked, Elena, the Truth. My grandmother's handwriting. Inside were 3 letters, all dated from July 1995, the summer before I was born. The first was addressed to my grandfather, but never sent. The second was a letter my mother had written to someone named Richard, clearly an affair partner, discussing her pregnancy and fears that Michael will know the baby isn't his. The third was a DNA test result from 1996, comparing my DNA to my father's. 97% probability of paternity. I was Michael Rodriguez's daughter. Completely, undeniably, scientifically proven. But there was more. Attached to my mother's letter to Richard was another DNA test. This one from 1994. Derek's test. Comparing his DNA to my father's, 0% probability of paternity. My older brother, the golden child, my mother's favorite, the one who could do no wrong, the one she called her real Rodriguez child. Derek wasn't my father's son at all. I sat in that small viewing room at First Desert Bank, holding documents that shattered everything my mother had built, and I smiled. She had taken my inheritance. She had called me illegitimate. She had laughed about it with the son she didn't know was actually the bastard child. Grandma must have known all of this. She had kept these documents safe for nearly 30 years, waiting. The box was opened in 1967, the year she and Grandpa came to America. Mariposa. Butterfly, my father's nickname for me. Everything was connected. Grandma had left the money equally to both grandchildren because she knew the truth would come out eventually. She had given me the key to destroy my mother's perfect lie. I carefully photographed every document with my phone, then placed the originals back in the box. My hands were steady now, my mind clear. The hurt and betrayal had crystallized into something cold and precise. My mother wanted to steal from me? Fine. But she should have made sure her favorite son was actually who she thought he was before she started throwing accusations about illegitimate children. Jessica met me at a coffee shop near my apartment 20 minutes after I texted her. She took one look at my face and ordered 2 large lattes without asking what I wanted. We sat in a corner booth away from other customers while I showed her everything on my phone. Derek's screenshot, the photos of the DNA tests, the letter from my mother to Richard. Holy hell, Jessica whispered, scrolling through the images for the 3rd time. Your mom accused you of being illegitimate while her golden boy is actually the one who isn't Michael's son? And she stole your inheritance based on that lie? She doesn't know I have proof, I said quietly. Grandma kept these documents hidden for almost 30 years. Mom thinks the secret died with her. Jessica's eyes narrowed in that calculating way that reminded me why she'd graduated top of her class from law school before becoming a family attorney. Elena, these documents are explosive. The DNA tests, the affair letter, the fact that she took your inheritance under false pretenses. You could destroy her. I know, so what are you going to do? I wrapped my hands around the hot coffee cup, feeling the heat seep into my palms. I need to find Richard first. Mom's letter to him mentioned he worked at Desert Sun Medical Center in 1995. If he's still in Phoenix, I need to know who he is. Why does that matter? Because Derek doesn't know, I said slowly. He thinks he's Michael Rodriguez's son. He thinks he's the legitimate heir. But he's Richard's child, whoever Richard is. And if Richard has any other family, any other children, Derek might have half-siblings he doesn't know about. Jessica's expression shifted from sympathy to something sharper. You want to find Derek's real father. I want to know everything before I make my move, I corrected. Mom took my money because she thought I wasn't Dad's daughter. She based that on nothing but my appearance and her own guilt about her affair. But the DNA tests proved she was wrong about me and completely clueless about Derek. Over the next week, I became someone I didn't recognize. After school each day, I researched. Desert Sun Medical Center's employee directory from 1995 was surprisingly easy to access through old newspaper archives at the Phoenix Public Library. The medical center had done a major expansion that year and published a full staff roster in a promotional supplement. I found 17 men named Richard, who worked there in various capacities. 3 were doctors, 5 were nurses, 4 were administrative staff, and 5 were support services. I cross-referenced each name with current Phoenix records, checking who still lived in the area. Richard Brennan, former anesthesiologist, now retired, living in Scottsdale. Richard Chen had moved to California in 2001. Richard Morrison, former hospital administrator, deceased in 2008. Richard Lawson, surgical nurse, still working at Desert Sun Medical Center. I eliminated the deceased and those who had moved away, which left me with 4 possibilities. Then I did something that made my hands shake as I typed. I searched each Richard's name along with my mother's name, Patricia Rodriguez, in old society pages and event photos from the Phoenix Business Journal archives. The library's microfiche collection went back decades. I spent 3 evenings scrolling through corporate event coverage, hospital fundraisers, and charity galas from 1994 to 1996. My eyes burned from the strain of reading tiny text on the illuminated screen. Then I found it. Phoenix Business Journal, March 1995. Desert Sun Medical Center annual gala raises $200, $0 for Children's Wing. The photo showed hospital staff and their guests at a formal dinner. 3rd row, slightly blurred but unmistakable. My mother in a navy evening gown standing beside a tall man in a tuxedo. The caption read, Patricia Martinez, HR consultant with Dr. Richard Brennan, anesthesiology. Martinez was my mother's maiden name. She hadn't married my father until December 1995, 6 months before I was born. Dr. Richard Brennan. I wrote the name in my notebook with a steady hand. 2 days later, I sat in my car outside a sprawling Scottsdale ranch house with desert landscaping and a 3-car garage. According to property records, Richard Brennan had purchased this home in 2010 for $850,000. The Range Rover in the driveway had physician plates. Through my research, I'd learned he'd retired from Desert Sun Medical 3 years ago at age 62. Apparently quite comfortable. I wasn't here to confront him. Not yet. I just needed to see him, to confirm he was real, to understand what kind of man my mother had chosen over my father. At 4:30, the garage door opened and a silver-haired man in golf attire climbed into the Range Rover. Even from a distance, I could see Derek's jawline in his face, the same broad shoulders, the same way he moved with easy confidence. My phone buzzed. Derek calling. Hey, I answered, watching his biological father back out of the driveway. Mom wants to do Sunday dinner at her place, Derek said, his voice carrying that uncomfortable tone it had held since he'd sent me the screenshot. She asked me to invite you. Did she? Look, Elena, about that message I sent you. I've been thinking about it and I don't know why I did that. Mom was probably just venting. You know how she gets. Right, venting about how I'm not Dad's real daughter and don't deserve Grandma's money. Silence. Then, are you going to say something to her? Should I? I don't know. Maybe it's better to just let it go. She invested your half of the inheritance. It's not like she stole it. The Range Rover turned the corner and disappeared. I started my car. I'll think about Sunday dinner. Elena? I have to go, Derek. I'll let you know. I drove to First Desert Bank and accessed the safe deposit box again. This time I removed all the documents and took them to a copy center where I made multiple sets of everything. One set went into a manila envelope that I addressed to myself at my school. Another went into a fireproof safe I purchased at Office Depot and installed in my apartment closet. The originals went back into box 337. That evening, I created a detailed timeline on my laptop. 1994. Patricia has affair with Dr. Richard Brennan. January 1995. Derek is born, Richard's son, not Michael's. March 1995. Photo of Patricia and Richard at hospital gala. July 1995. Patricia's letter to Richard about being pregnant again, with me. December 1995. Patricia marries Michael Rodriguez. June 1996. I am born 1996. DNA test confirms I am Michael's daughter, 1996. Earlier DNA test proves Derek is not Michael's daughter, 2018. Dad dies, never knowing Derek wasn't his son, 2025. Grandma Carmen dies, leaving inheritance to both grandchildren, 2025. Patricia steals my inheritance, claiming I'm not legitimate. Every piece fit together like a puzzle. My mother had gotten pregnant by Richard, panicked, and somehow convinced my father to marry her while she was already showing with Derek. Then she'd gotten pregnant again, this time with my father's actual child. But instead of being grateful that she'd successfully passed off one affair baby, she'd spent my entire life treating me like I was the illegitimate one. The psychology of it fascinated me in a detached way. She'd projected her guilt onto me, making me the outsider while elevating her actual bastard child to golden status. Sunday arrived. I drove to my mother's house in Arcadia, the home she'd kept after Dad died thanks to his life insurance and her corporate salary. Derek's car was already in the driveway when I pulled up. My mother opened the door wearing an apron and a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Elena, I'm so glad you came. I was afraid you might still be upset about the inheritance arrangement." "Why would I be upset?" I asked, stepping inside and handing her the bottle of wine I'd brought. "You're investing it for the family's future, right?" Something flickered across her face. Suspicion? Confusion that I wasn't fighting? Exactly. "I'm meeting with my financial advisor on Tuesday to finalize everything." Derek sat at the dining table, scrolling through his phone. He looked up when I entered and offered an awkward wave. The table was set with Mom's good china, the same dishes we'd used for every holiday dinner since I was a child. During the meal, Mom talked about her job, about the new training program she was implementing at her company, about Derek's recent real estate sales. She asked me nothing about my teaching, about my students, about my life. This wasn't unusual. It had been this way for as long as I could remember. "So, Elena," Derek said, clearly trying to ease the tension he'd created with his screenshot. "How are things at school? Still teaching third grade?" "Still teaching," I confirmed, cutting into the chicken on my plate, "though I've been doing some research lately, too. Family history project." My mother's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Family history?" I've been going through Grandma's old photos and documents. She had so many stories about when she and Grandpa first came to Phoenix. Did you know they opened a safe deposit box the year they arrived? 1967. They called it their American Dream Box. "I didn't know that," Patricia said carefully. "Grandma told me about it before she died," I continued, watching my mother's face. "She said it had all the important family documents, birth certificates, immigration papers, wedding photos. She gave me the password." Derek looked interested. "That's cool. Have you opened it?" "I did, actually, last week. There was so much history in there." I took a sip of water. "Including some things from the mid-90s, around the time you were born, Derek." My mother stood abruptly. "I need to check on dessert." She disappeared into the kitchen. Derek frowned at me. Why did that make her weird? Did it? "Elena, what's going on?" I met his eyes. "How much do you really want to know?" Derek followed me out to the backyard after dinner while Mom cleaned up, insisting she didn't need help. The Phoenix sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, the kind of evening my father used to call God's painting. "You've been acting strange," Derek said, leaning against the patio railing, "ever since the will reading. I thought you'd be angrier about Mom taking your inheritance." "Maybe I'm just tired of being angry," I replied, which wasn't entirely a lie. The anger had transformed into something colder, more patient. "But since you brought it up, why did you send me that screenshot?" He shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know. It felt wrong. What she said about you not being Dad's kid. I mean, you look just like Dad's sister, Aunt Rosa. Same eyes, same hair color. Interesting that you noticed that." "Of course I noticed. We grew up together." He paused. "Mom really believes you're not his daughter, Elena. She's believed it your whole life. I never knew that until she said it in that text." "And you?" I asked. "Do you believe it?" "No. he said immediately. Your dad's daughter. Anyone with eyes can see it. I pulled out my phone and opened the photos I'd saved from the safe deposit box. Want to see proof? His eyebrows rose. You have proof? Grandma did. I showed him the DNA test from 1996. The one proving Michael Rodriguez was my father with 99.97% certainty. She kept it all these years. Mom had this test done when I was a baby, probably to confirm her suspicions. But she was wrong. Derek stared at the image, zooming in to read the details. Holy shit. Does Mom know you have this? Not yet. You need to show her this, Elena. She's been treating you like an outsider our whole lives based on a lie. Oh, I'm going to show her, I said. But first, there's something you should know too. His expression turned wary. What? When was the last time you looked at your own birth certificate? My birth certificate? I don't know, when I got my real estate license. Why? I pulled up another photo, Derek's DNA test from 1994, the one comparing his DNA to Michael Rodriguez's. 0% probability of paternity. What is this? Derek's voice had gone quiet, dangerous. That's your DNA test. Grandma had it in the same box. Mom tested both of us, I guess. Wanted to be sure about her suspicions. He grabbed my phone, staring at the screen like he could change the words by force of will. This says Dad wasn't my father. That's exactly what it says. That's impossible. I'm Michael Rodriguez's son. Everyone always said I had his personality, his business sense. His personality isn't genetic, I said gently. He raised you. He loved you. He was your father in every way that mattered. But biologically? No, Derek, you're not his son. He handed my phone back with shaking hands and sat down hard on one of the patio chairs. Mom knows this? Mom arranged the test. She knows. And she still told me that you were the one who wasn't legitimate? His voice cracked. She took your inheritance saying you didn't deserve it because you weren't Dad's real child, when all along I was the one. Don't finish that sentence, I interrupted. Dad was your father. He chose to be your father. This DNA test doesn't change what he meant to you or what you meant to him. But Mom lied. My whole life she lied. Yes. Derek's face cycled through emotions. Shock, betrayal, anger, confusion. Finally, he looked up at me with something like fear. If Michael Rodriguez wasn't my biological father, then who was? I sat down in the chair next to him. Based on Grandma's documents, a man named Dr. Richard Brennan. He was an anesthesiologist at Desert Sun Medical Center. Mom was working there as an HR consultant when she got pregnant with you. Richard Brennan, Derek repeated numbly. I have a different father and I don't even know his name. I know where he lives. His head snapped up. You found him? Scottsdale Ranch House. Retired. Apparently did very well for himself. He's 65 now. I pulled up a photo I'd taken from his professional profile when he was still practicing. This is him. Derek stared at the image, and I watched the recognition dawn on his face. I look like him. You have his jawline, his build, his coloring. Does he know about me? I don't know, I admitted. Grandma's documents include a letter from Mom to him, talking about being pregnant. But I don't know if she ever told him she had the baby, or if she just disappeared. We sat in silence for several minutes while Derek processed everything. Inside, I could hear my mother moving around the kitchen, completely unaware that her carefully constructed lies were crumbling on her patio. What are you going to do? Derek finally asked. I'm going to get my inheritance back, I said simply. Mom stole it based on the lie that I wasn't Dad's daughter. But I have proof that I am. And I have proof that she's been lying about everything since before we were born. And me? That's up to you. You could meet Richard Brennan. You could demand answers from Mom. You could walk away and pretend you never knew. I paused. Or you could help me make sure she never lies to either of us again. Derek was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. Then, what do you need? Over the next week, Derek and I became allies for the first time in our lives. He took the DNA documents to a private attorney, not Mr. Harrison, someone Mom didn't know, to verify their authenticity and legal standing. The attorney confirmed everything. The tests were legitimate, properly dated and documented, admissible in court. Meanwhile, I scheduled a meeting with Mr. Harrison under the pretense of asking questions about Grandma's estate. I sat in his office with my evidence folder and calmly explained that I had discovered documents proving I was, in fact, Michael Rodriguez's biological daughter, and that my mother had taken my inheritance under false pretenses. Miss Rodriguez, Mr. RR, Harrison said carefully, reviewing the DNA test results. These documents certainly change the circumstances under which the inheritance agreement was signed. Your mother made specific claims about your legitimacy that influenced your decision to allow her control of your portion. She committed fraud, I said bluntly. She made false statements to coerce me into signing over my inheritance. I want it back. Legally, you have grounds to challenge the agreement. The question is whether you want to pursue this through the courts or handle it privately with your family. What would a court case involve? Filing a complaint, presenting evidence, likely testimony from both you and your mother. Given the DNA evidence and the circumstances, you would almost certainly win, but it would be public record. Your family situation would become part of legal documents accessible to anyone. I considered this. Public record meant reporters could find it. It meant my mother's employer could discover that their trusted HR manager had committed fraud against her own daughter. It meant Derek's clients might learn his entire identity was based on a lie. What if I handle it privately first? I asked. Give her the chance to return the money voluntarily? That's certainly an option, though if she refuses, you'd still need to file suit. And if I did, what are we talking about in terms of damages? Mr. Harrison leaned back in his chair. The inheritance itself, $180,000. Court costs and attorney fees, which your mother would likely be ordered to pay given the fraudulent nature of her actions. And potentially punitive damages for fraud and emotional distress. How much in punitive damages? That depends on the jury, but given the egregious nature of defrauding your own child based on false claims about their legitimacy, it could be substantial, potentially doubling or tripling the original amount. $500,000, maybe more, enough to bankrupt my mother, destroy her career, ruin her reputation. The thought made me smile. I contacted Richard Brennan through a carefully worded letter delivered to his Scottsdale address. I didn't mention Derek. I simply stated that I was researching family history related to Desert Sun Medical Center in the mid-1990s and had found his name connected to my family. I included my phone number and email address. He called 3 days later. Miss Rodriguez? His voice was smooth, professional, cautious. I received your letter. I'm not sure how I can help you with family history research. Did you know Patricia Martinez in 1995? Silence. Then, I did. We worked together at the hospital. Did you know she got pregnant? More silence. Miss Rodriguez, what exactly is this about? Truth, I said simply. My grandmother kept documents from 1995. Letters, DNA tests, photographs. She wanted me to know the truth about my family, and part of that truth involves you. I haven't spoken to Patricia in 30 years. Did you know about the baby? She told me she was pregnant, he said carefully. She said it was mine. Then she disappeared. Changed her number, stopped coming to the hospital. I heard later she'd gotten married. I assumed she'd made her choice. The baby's name is Derek, I told him. He's 31 years old. He's a real estate agent here in Phoenix. He was raised believing Michael Rodriguez was his father. He just found out 2 weeks ago that wasn't true. The sound of Richard Brennan sitting down was audible through the phone. Jesus Christ. He looks exactly like you, I continued. Same jaw, same build, same coloring. There's no doubt. And I have the DNA test from 1994 proving you're his biological father. Does he want to meet me? I don't know yet. Right now he's still processing the fact that his entire identity was a lie. And Patricia, does she know you have these documents? Not yet, but she's about to. I arranged Sunday dinner at a restaurant this time. Neutral territory. Somewhere my mother couldn't control the environment or make a scene without consequences. The Capitol Grill, downtown Phoenix, expensive enough that she'd feel obligated to behave. Derek and I arrived together. Mom was already there, seated at a table near the window, wearing one of her power suits even though it was the weekend. She smiled when she saw us, that practiced corporate smile that had probably closed 1,000 business deals. Both my children, she said as we sat down. This is nice. We should do this more often. We should do a lot of things more often, I agreed, opening my menu. Like tell the truth. Her smile faltered. What? I opened Grandma's safe deposit box, I said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. Box 337 at First Desert Bank. Password was Mariposa 1967. Dad's nickname for me, remember? Patricia's face went carefully blank. I didn't know about any safe deposit box. Grandma made sure you didn't. She left it specifically for me. I pulled out my folder and set it on the table between us. She left me something else too. Documentation. Lots of it. Elena, what are you doing? Mom's voice had an edge now. Derek leaned forward. Show her, Elena. I opened the folder and removed the first document. My DNA test from 1996. This is proof that Michael Rodriguez was my biological father. 99.97% probability. You had this test done when I was a baby, probably hoping to prove your suspicions that I wasn't his. But you were wrong. My mother stared at the paper like it was a venomous snake. Where did you get that? From Grandma's safe deposit box. She kept all your secrets, Mom. Every single one. I laid out the second document. Her letter to Richard Brennan from July 1995, discussing her pregnancy and her fears. This is a letter you wrote to your affair partner. Talking about me. Worried that Michael would know I wasn't his, except I was. You had no right to go through private documents. They weren't in your possession, I interrupted. They were in Grandma's safe deposit box. She left them for me. She wanted me to know the truth. I placed the third document on the table. Derek's DNA test from 1994. And this is the real secret you've been keeping. Derek pushed the paper toward Mom. 0% probability that Michael Rodriguez was my father. You knew. You've always known. The color drained from Patricia's face. People at nearby tables were starting to glance over, sensing drama. You two don't understand, she whispered. The situation was complicated. Complicated. Derek's voice rose slightly before he controlled it. You let me believe Michael was my father my entire life. You let him believe it. He died never knowing I wasn't actually his son. And then you had the audacity to claim that Elena was the illegitimate one when you knew the entire time it was me. Michael Rodriguez was your father in every way that mattered, Patricia insisted. He raised you. He loved you. Then why did you take Elena's inheritance? I asked quietly. Why did you tell Derek that I didn't deserve Grandma's money because I wasn't Dad's biological daughter when you knew I actually was? She had no answer for that. I pulled out my phone and showed her Derek's screenshot of their text conversation. This is you, laughing about stealing from me, calling me illegitimate, saying the money should stay with the real Rodriguez children. But Derek isn't a Rodriguez either, is he? He's a Brennan. Stop it, my mother hissed. Both of you. Stop this right now. I've already spoken with Mr. Harrison, I continued. He confirmed that you committed fraud by making false statements about my legitimacy to coerce me into signing over my inheritance. I have grounds to sue you for the full amount plus damages. You wouldn't. Try me. We stared at each other across the table. 30 years of lies and manipulation crystallizing into this single moment. Derek sat beside me, silent support, his own betrayal making him my ally. What do you want? Patricia finally asked. My money back. All of it. $180,000 transferred to my account by the end of the week. That's impossible. I've already invested some of it. Then liquidate whatever you invested. Borrow it from your retirement fund. I don't care how you get it. But if that money isn't in my account by Friday at 5 p.m., I file suit on Monday morning. And when I do, I'm including all of these documents as evidence. Your employer will find out that their HR manager committed fraud against her own daughter. Your friends will discover you've been lying about your children's paternity for 3 decades. Everyone will know. You'd destroy our family over money? You already destroyed our family, Derek said coldly. You destroyed it the moment you chose lies over truth. Elena just wants what's legally hers. Patricia looked between us, seeing clearly for the first time that she'd lost both her children. And if I give the money back, will you keep these documents private? That depends, I said. Are you going to apologize? Are you going to admit what you did? I did what I thought was best. Wrong answer. I stood up, gathering my folder. You have until Friday at 5 p.m. If the money isn't there, I'll see you in court. Derek stood with me. We walked out of the restaurant together, leaving our mother alone at the table with her lies spread out in front of her. In the parking lot, Derek leaned against his car and laughed. A slightly hysterical sound. Did we just do that? We did that. She's going to come after us. She's going to try to make this our fault somehow. Let her try. We have documentation. We have proof. We have the truth. He looked at me with something like respect. When did you get so tough? I've always been tough. You just never noticed because I was too busy being invisible while you played the golden child. Fair enough. He paused. Do you really think she'll pay you back? I think she'll try to find a way out first. But yes, eventually she'll pay. Because the alternative is losing everything. We stood in the parking lot as the Phoenix sun set behind the downtown buildings. 2 siblings finally united. not by love, but by the shared experience of discovering that the woman who raised us was a stranger. Patricia didn't transfer the money by Friday. I had expected this. My mother had spent 3 decades manipulating situations to her advantage. She wasn't going to cave immediately just because her children had confronted her with evidence. She would try to find an angle, a strategy, a way to turn this around. On Monday morning, I filed suit through Mr. Harrison's office. The complaint was detailed and devastating: fraud, coercion, misrepresentation, breach of fiduciary duty. We included copies of all the DNA tests, Patricia's letter to Richard, and Derek's screenshot showing her explicit admission that she'd taken my inheritance based on false claims about my legitimacy. Court filings were public record. By Tuesday afternoon, Patricia's employer had seen the documents. By Wednesday morning, she was on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. HR managers couldn't be seen committing fraud, especially not against their own family members. Derek called me Wednesday evening. She's at my apartment. She's hysterical. Says we've ruined her life. Did you let her in? No, I'm at a coffee shop. I just wanted to warn you that she'll probably show up at your place next. Let her come. She arrived at 8 p.m., pounding on my apartment door with the fury of someone whose perfect facade had finally cracked. I opened the door but left the chain engaged. Elena Maria Rodriguez, you let me in right now. No, I'm your mother. You're a woman who stole my inheritance based on a lie, I corrected calmly. And now you're facing the consequences. You've destroyed everything. My job, my reputation, my whole life. You destroyed your own life when you chose to lie instead of telling the truth. She pressed her face close to the gap in the door, her makeup smeared from crying. Please, Elena, please drop the lawsuit. I'll find a way to pay you back, I promise. Just give me time. You had time. You had Friday at 5 p.m. You chose not to pay. I couldn't liquidate the investments that quickly. You're being unreasonable. No, I'm being treated exactly how I deserve to be treated, with honesty and fairness. I started to close the door. You should leave now. What about Derek? Did you tell him about Richard? Did you poison him against me completely? Derek makes his own choices, just like I do. This is all your grandmother's fault. Patricia spat. That bitter old woman keeping those documents, poisoning you against me even from beyond the grave. Grandma Carmen kept those documents because she knew eventually the truth would matter. She was protecting me from you. I closed the door and engaged the deadbolt. Patricia pounded on the door for another 5 minutes before finally leaving. I watched from my window as she sat in her car in the parking lot for nearly an hour, probably gathering herself before driving home. The lawsuit proceeded quickly. Mr. Harrison was efficient, and the evidence was overwhelming. Patricia's attorney tried to argue that the DNA tests were obtained improperly, but they'd been conducted legally in 1994 and 1996, stored legally by my grandmother, and accessed legally by me as the designated recipient of the safe deposit box. Then came Patricia's worst nightmare. Her attorney requested a meeting to discuss settlement terms. We met at Mr. Harrison's office 2 weeks after filing the complaint. Patricia looked diminished, older, her usual polished appearance replaced by exhaustion and defeat. Her attorney, a tired-looking man in his 50s, spread documents across the conference table. My client acknowledges that certain misstatements were made regarding the circumstances of the inheritance distribution, he began. Misstatements? I repeated. She committed fraud. She told her son that I was illegitimate and didn't deserve my inheritance, knowing she had DNA proof that I was actually Michael Rodriguez's biological daughter. That's not a misstatement. That's deliberate deception for financial gain. My client is prepared to return the full amount of $180,000 plus interest accrued, plus court costs, attorney fees, and damages, Mr. Harrison interrupted. The complaint clearly outlines all requested amounts. Patricia finally spoke, her voice hoarse. I don't have that kind of money. Then you'll need to find it, I said flatly. Liquidate your retirement fund. Take out a loan against your house. Sell your car. I don't care how you get it. You really want to destroy me completely, don't you? I want justice. There's a difference. Her attorney shuffled papers. We could propose a payment plan. No payment plans, Mr. Harrison said firmly. Full payment within 30 days, or we proceed to trial. And I should warn you that if we go to trial, we'll be adding additional punitive damages. The jury will not look kindly on a mother who defrauded her own daughter based on false claims about her legitimacy. Patricia's attorney whispered something to her. She closed her eyes, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out another document. Derek needs to be involved in this conversation. Derek? Patricia looked confused. Why? Because Derek has his own lawsuit to file if he wants to. Michael Rodriguez named Derek as his son in his will. Derek inherited the house you're still living in, the life insurance money, everything. But if Derek isn't actually Michael's biological son, those inheritances could potentially be challenged. The room went silent. You wouldn't, Patricia whispered. I wouldn't, I agreed, because I believe Dad meant for Derek to have those things regardless of biology, but legally it's a question. And there's someone else who might have standing to challenge it. Who? Richard Brennan, Derek's biological father. The man you never told about his son. Patricia's face went white. You contacted Richard? I did. We had a very interesting conversation. He didn't know Derek existed. 31 years. And you never told him he had a son. He's quite interested in meeting Derek now. He's also quite interested in understanding why his biological son was raised with another man's name and inheritance. This was a bluff. Richard Brennan had expressed interest in meeting Derek but had made no mention of challenging any legal matters. But my mother didn't know that. Derek doesn't want to meet him, Patricia said desperately. He's happy thinking Michael was his father. Actually, Derek said from the doorway, making everyone jump, I do want to meet him, and I have met him. Yesterday, in fact. Derek walked into the conference room and sat down next to me. He looked at our mother with an expression I'd never seen before. Complete indifference. Richard Brennan is a good man, Derek continued. He answered every question I had. He explained what happened in 1995, how you disappeared after telling him you were pregnant, how he tried to find you. He showed me photos of his family. I have 2 half-sisters, by the way. Both younger than me. Richard married someone else, had a family, built a good life. And he's very interested in getting to know me now. Derek, please. He's also very angry that you never told him about me. Angry enough that he's considering whether he has any legal standing to challenge the inheritances you collected on my behalf when I was a minor. His attorney is looking into it. This was Derek's addition to the plan, and it was brilliant. Even if Richard had no actual legal grounds, the threat alone was devastating. Patricia looked between Derek and me, finally understanding that she'd lost both her children permanently. What do you want from me? Everything you owe Elena, Derek said. Plus a public apology. Plus you stay out of both our lives. $347,000, Mr. Harrison stated, referencing his calculator. The original inheritance, court costs, attorney fees, and modest damages, payable in full within 30 days. I'll be bankrupt, Patricia whispered. You'll survive, I said. You'll have to sell the house that Derek inherited from Dad. You'll have to liquidate your retirement fund. You'll have to start over. Just like I had to start over when you stole my inheritance. Just like Derek has to start over now that he knows his entire identity was built on lies. I'm your mother. You're a woman who committed fraud. That's all you are to me now. Patricia signed the settlement agreement with shaking hands. Her attorney looked relieved to have avoided a public trial. Within 2 weeks, the money appeared in my account. $347,000. I donated $50,000 to Phoenix Children's Hospital in my father's name. Another $50,000 went into a trust for Derek, who had refused to take any money from me, but who I knew would need support while he rebuilt his relationship with his biological father and processed everything he'd learned. The rest I kept, investing it exactly as my grandmother had probably hoped I would. Carefully, intelligently, independently. 6 months later, I stood in the doorway of my new house in Tempe, a modest 3-bedroom with a backyard and good schools nearby. The down payment had come from my settlement with Patricia. The mortgage was easily manageable on my teacher's salary now that I had equity. Derek's truck pulled into the driveway, followed by a silver Range Rover I recognized. He'd been spending more time with Richard Brennan, building a relationship that was cautious but genuine. Watching them together was strange, seeing how similar they looked, how they both had the same gesture of rubbing their jaw when they were thinking. Nice place, Derek said, carrying a housewarming gift through the door. Richard followed with a bottle of wine. Thank you both for coming, I said, meaning it. Richard looked around the living room, taking in the photos I'd hung. Pictures of my father Michael with me as a child, photos of Grandma Carmen, images of my students from over the years. Your father would be proud of you, he said quietly. Michael, I mean. Derek's told me about him. He was a good man, I agreed. He deserved better than what he got. He loved us both, Derek added. That's what matters. We sat in my new backyard as the Arizona sun set, drinking wine and talking about everything except Patricia. She'd been forced to sell the Arcadia house to pay the settlement. The loss of her job had become permanent after the internal investigation revealed several other questionable decisions she'd made over the years. Not illegal, but unethical enough to warrant termination. Last I'd heard, she was working as a consultant for a small firm, making a quarter of her previous salary, living in a small apartment in a less desirable part of Phoenix. Derek said she'd tried to contact him twice, both times asking for money, both times refused. "Have you heard from her?" Derek asked me now. "She sent a letter last month. I didn't open it. Same, I think she's finally realizing that we're not coming back." Jessica arrived with her husband, bringing dessert and congratulations. She hugged me tightly. "You did it. You really did it. We did it," I corrected, nodding toward Derek, both of us, as the evening progressed and my small backyard filled with the people who actually mattered to me. Friends, colleagues, Derek, even Richard, who was becoming part of my chosen family. I thought about my grandmother. Carmen Santos had kept those documents for nearly 30 years, waiting for the right moment, the right person, to use them. She'd known eventually Patricia's lies would matter. She'd known I would need proof. And she'd made sure I had everything I required to protect myself and claim what was rightfully mine. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. "I'm sorry. Please, can we talk? I'm your mother." I showed it to Derek, who shook his head. "Block the number?" "Already done." Patricia Rodriguez, or Patricia Martinez, or whatever name she wanted to call herself now, had spent 3 decades building a life on lies. She'd treated me as an outsider while elevating her actual, illegitimate son. She'd stolen my inheritance based on false claims about my paternity. She'd manipulated, deceived, and betrayed everyone who trusted her. And now she was alone, broke, and desperate, while her children thrived without her. Some people might call that harsh. Some might say I should forgive, should show mercy, should remember that she was still my mother regardless of her mistakes. Those people had never had their inheritance stolen, had never been called illegitimate by the woman who actually committed the adultery, had never spent their entire childhood being treated as less than because their mother projected her own guilt onto them. I had no mercy left for Patricia. I had no forgiveness, no second chances, no sympathy. I had justice. I had my inheritance. I had a brother who finally saw me as an equal. I had a home, a career, a future built on truth instead of lies. And I had the satisfaction of knowing that the woman who tried to destroy me had destroyed herself instead. That night, after everyone left and I was alone in my new house, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my back patio under the Arizona stars. My father's favorite constellation, Orion, hung bright in the southern sky. "Thanks, Grandma," I whispered to the night air. "You taught me that truth always matters. That family is defined by loyalty, not blood. And that some people deserve exactly what they get." My mother had planted the seeds of her own destruction the moment she chose lies over truth. I had simply watered those seeds and watched them grow into the bitter harvest she now had to reap alone. The mortgage was paid. The house was mine. My inheritance was secure, and Patricia Rodriguez was exactly where she deserved to be. On the outside, looking in at the life she could have had if she'd chosen differently. I raised my glass to the stars and smiled. Justice, it turned out, tasted sweeter than any revenge I could have imagined.